Now, for week 2, our groups are going to be discussing how do you practice for an AP test? And as an AP teacher, I have some advice for you. All right, so here we go. So number 1, there's the 3 Ps, and my college professor told me this, and I'll never forget it. If you want to do well for really anything in life, a test, a job interview, etc., there's 3 Ps for success. Number 1, you've got to prepare. And we just talked about how important preparation is and how, once again, start early and you've got to have a plan and you've got to make sure you have covered everything they're going to ask you on the AP exam. So look at that course description and make sure you go over every single bullet point, at least read it. And once again, if you don't know something, like in your preparation, go ahead and get those questions answered. But let's talk about practice, because practice is step 2. You can't just prepare and do well. You've got to practice. You've got to practice for the real thing. If you think about any sport, how much time do they put into that practice? A lot. Every single day they're practicing. Right? So that's what we have to do at an earlier time. And then finally, you can't just prepare. You can't just practice alone. You've got to perform. And I got to tell you, with more time and experience and more tests under your belt, you're going to get better and better at this. So, we've all had tests in which we've studied so much, but we just choke in the moment because we're like, oh, I'm so scared. I don't know this. Right? So performance is that other piece that you've got to have. So prepare, practice, perform, the 3 Ps for success on your AP exam. And you got to get all 3 to be successful. You got to know the format. So before we start practicing and jumping in, I would say, look at that course description, Google. So every year is different. Last year, it was a shorter exam. This year, it's going to be a longer exam. 2 years ago, in person, it once again had more questions. So every year is different. Do your research. How many questions are on the test? And how many seconds do you get for each question? They're going to give you a little time frame. So you've got to kind of like do the math and figure out, okay, roughly I've got about 80 seconds per question. All right, so I got to move, right? So if I get stuck on one, I got to move and then maybe come back, etc. Types of questions. What kind of types of questions are they going to ask you on your AP exam? Look at that. Prepare for that. How much time, once again, it is for the test. And you've got to kind of understand that we get tired on exams, especially like the longer ones. We get tired. So the more practice you put in, the more stamina you're going to build to last during that whole AP exam, because you got to be sharp during the whole time. Plus, get your sleep, especially before those, like the few days, not just the night before, but the few days coming up to the AP exam. What's better than actually studying, what's been proven, is you well rested and ready to go with everything set. Finally, have you taken a full length test straight? And if so, how many? Ethan, our last interviewer last week that came out, he talked about how he took one AP practice exam, he got a 5, and he didn't do any more. I would do a few, all right? So how many have you taken? And I get it. Sometimes it's a long test and you're like, well, I don't want to sit down for 3 hours and take a test. But sometimes before you take the real thing, you probably should. So clear some time over your weekend or something like that and try to take a full length test at some point, okay? And the next, work. So you've got to put in the practice. So practice makes proficient. We all know that. My recommendation, once again, is take a few practice tests before the actual test. For me, in years past, I've offered to my students 5 to 10 full-length practice opportunities in my classroom. That's just what I like to do as a volunteer, and to kind of give my students more and more opportunities to test. I get it. At home, if I assign it, they may or may not do it. But when you're in a class, when there's other people around you, it's so much easier to be motivated. Now, once again, this year is going to be different. Most likely you are going to be at home taking it on your computer. So that's why you've got to sit down, and once again, you've got to practice putting all your distractions away. So cell phone in another room, telling your family, hey, I'm going to take a full-length practice exam. Just please try not to bother me unless it's really important over the next few hours, right? And then from there, I get it. There's going to be distractions. You're going to want to check the news or something. I don't know. You're going to want to check something or take a break. But if I were you, straight through, put in the time, put in the practice. And finally, where do I get practice exams? So as an AP teacher, here's what I tell my students. Number 1, College Board AP Classroom. College Board is set up an AP classroom with so many practice questions for every single unit. For my students, it's usually the last 6 to 7 weeks before the AP exam. I assign every single question in AP Classroom. All right. So if you're in my class, we're going to do these. Next, the AP course description. When you Google the AP course description, not only will you see a list of concepts, but at the very end, there's some practice tests. Take those. Those are straight from the test creators. So take those and see how that is. Prep books, would I get one? I actually probably would. And once again, I understand that everyone's got different resources. There's some on mine too. But in short, why are prep books good? Because once again, it gives you a summary. Now, the summary may or may not give you enough depth. That's why during the school year, I like to get really deep into the real biology of, what's going on, et cetera. The prep books will give you a summary, but at least that's better than nothing. And then at the very end of prep books, usually there's 2, 3, or maybe 4 full-length practice exams for you to use. All right. And then next, your teacher has so many resources. Go ask your teacher, hey, where can I get some more practice material? What do you have to provide for me, et cetera? And once again, be nice. Your teachers work so hard. I work so hard for my students, and it goes an extra mile. And if you're nice about it too. Next, if that's not enough, Google AP blank, whatever AP exam you're taking, practice questions. If you do that, there's so many questions. There's thousands of questions out there in which you can actually practice that have been written by teachers, etc. All right. So there's a lot out there. Once again, some takeaways. Number 1, there's no substitution for hard work. Put in the time. It's early enough right now. We still got a few weeks until the AP exam. Start now. Number 2, habits that are developed are more important, in my opinion, than the AP test result. I get it. What you see at the end of all this is a number, and you're like, well, that's what I get. But no, I see the habits. I see the hard work. I see the discipline. I see the consistency, all right, that is put into this exam, right? Remember, life is a marathon. So it's not about just winning. It's about learning about yourself. Everyone's got a different strategy, and everyone's got a different kind of way about it. Okay. And then finally, number 4, you can do this. You really can. I get it. It's intimidating. It's scary sometimes, but you can do this. Put in the time, put in the practice. You can do this. On game day, I want you to be like, you know what? I practiced so hard for this, and I'm going to do well on this. All right. So you can do this. If you like this video, there's so much more. I'm going to be interviewing some awesome students. I'm going to be getting some different perspectives. So I'm not just going to have these videos all the time, but please stay with us. Once again, subscribe if you haven't. That would be awesome. But next week, we're going to talk about strategies for online AP testing. And I'm going to bring my students from last year, and they're going to share some things they wish they knew before taking the exam online. For those of you online watching this who are going to be taking it online. And then week 4, how do we deal with test anxiety? We all have it, but how do we deal with it? And then week 5, how do we deal with success? But how do we deal with failure? Because that's life. You can't just win at everything and then just expect yourself to grow. Sometimes we grow from our greatest failures, all right? Of course, I want you all to do well. Of course, I want you to pass the AP exam, but I understand what life is, and I'm telling you, keep going. I'm so proud of you all, and thanks for watching this video. See you next time.